the network, and also any experience from the US in that respect that may be useful in Europe, of course.
The tyranny of killing, of a killer application. To be honest, I don't know that there is any killer apps, but this morning we had a session and people were talking about the multiplication of devices and services, and I think the killer application is really the multiplication of devices. Once, when you have more people using networks, getting content delivered to multiple devices, by definition that drives demand for bandwidth. But to come back to the original question, despite the fact that we kind of changed the strategy on the consumer telepresence, we still believe that a connected TV or smart TV is a communication device. It's not a TV anymore. Right? It works both ways. So if it's a communication device, you can, deliver to that device high definition, immersive video conferencing, what we call telepresence services, and that drives bandwidth both ways, upstream and downstreams. And at the same time, it's actually a kind of an additional use of the smart TV. So we, Cisco, have kind of diverted our investment into the consumer space. We're not doing consumer telepresence per se, but there are other people doing the exact same kind of services. You now get smart TV with Skype services embedded, and you connect your a little web camera to your Samsung TV, and off you go. You have a high-definition consumer telepresence service. So those kind of services are penetrating the market. The more of this smart TV you will see in the market, the more people will be using it. And the service platforms being based on Skype will probably cross-pollinate across multiple devices, boxes, and gaming consoles, and so on and so forth. The other thing that I would say is one of the key property of fiber, as opposed to DSL primarily, is the fact that this is symmetrical. So one of the attractiveness of fiber is that any service that requires symmetrical connectivity or symmetrical bandwidth has an advantage over fiber, to run over fiber as opposed to DSL. So things like cloud, obviously, and cloud is often associated with SME, small businesses, but the reality is, I have iCloud running on my iPhone, and I have iCloud running on my iPad, and I have iCloud running on my Mac. And guess what? All my videos and my personal photos are getting stored in the cloud. So all of that consume upstream bandwidth, which by definition fiber is better suited to deliver. The same thing is true for, we were talking about mobile offload. That's another big trend. A lot of services are kind of, you do mobile offload, for example. Well, that consumes bandwidth over your connection to your home. And if this is DSL, the upstream bandwidth is not that great, right? It's usually capped at about 1 meg, in good conditions. So if you have fiber, you have more symmetricity, and that's basically more suitable. And finally, if I'm looking at TV, this morning someone mentioned that the quality of the picture, right? There is nothing worse as an experience than a high-definition TV that display bad video or, standard definition video, or even worse than that. And the fact that over fiber you get real bandwidth as opposed to a promise, right? That the quality is much more consistent. It tends to be binary. It works or it doesn't, but you don't have this kind of work that creates sometimes some bad experience on the high definition TV. So all those things add up together is the killer application for fiber. It's not so much one particular application that I think will drive the adoption. And last but not least, there is also a pricing discussion that we probably should have. If I'm looking at pricing broadband services like potatoes, you don't buy potatoes by unit, you buy potatoes by kilo. If I was looking at a report recently from OECD, and they were comparing the price of bandwidth on a per megabit basis. The ratio on average in Europe is 1 to 10, so 1 to 8 precisely. So basically every time you spend $1, you get 8 times more and higher quality bandwidth on fiber than you get on DSL, for example. And in the case of cable, the ratio is about 1 to 4, 1 to 5. And that's, to me, driving customer satisfaction, lower cost of lower cost of operation, lower cost of support, and so on and so forth. All of that combined is what the killer application for fiber is.